Hello friends, this is Dr. John WorldPeace JD coming to you from Albuquerque, New Mexico, July the 29th, 2021, 9:32 a.m. Mountain Time. The subject today is the abomination of false preachers. I have a couple of things to say about these $1 million, billion Jesus shows that you see on TV and you hear on the news waves, on the airwaves. Kenneth Copeland, Joel Osteen, Brian Houston of Hillsong, John Hagee, all false preachers. All preachers are false. And I'm going to tell you a couple of reasons why. The coronavirus is killing people. And the virus was let loose on the earth by God to stop Donald Trump. Now there's reasons for that I have stated on other videos and in my book, The Third Millennium, Second Reformation of Christianity. But when the coronavirus hit in December of 2019, Trump, who was on a roll, if you will, was stopped in his tracks. And nothing he did after that worked out for him, culminating in the insurrection of January the 6th. Now, the coronavirus, the Delta variants, the floods in China, the floods in Europe, the fires in the western part of the United States, and the heat domes that keep forming over the United States. It's quite obvious that you Christians especially are not getting the message. And what's happening now is we've got people that refuse the vaccine. And what they're going to bring about is the death of a lot of children who can't get vaccinated. Back in the beginning, Trump said, "Oh, don't worry about it because it's not affecting the children." Well, there's a variant now that's getting ready to be the shadow of death over children. And if these children go to school without masks, it's suicide. I am the only advocate for Jesus Christ. I'm not a Messiah, an avatar, none of that. My name is WorldPeace. I am not a pacifist, and neither was Jesus. If you think he was a pacifist, you have to ask yourself why he did nothing but constantly attack the Jewish rabbis, never had anything good to say about them, and then he picked up the whip in the temple square and started kicking over the money changers and the sacrificial animal sales and began to whip them, these money changers, and drive them out of the temple. That's not a pacifist. Gandhi was not a pacifist. King was not a pacifist. Mandela was not a pacifist. You cannot talk about peace and world peace and not be attacked. Now these men, there's a lot of difference between non-violence and pacifists. None of these men were pacifists, but for the most part they were non-violent. Jesus is an exception, but neither Gandhi nor Mandela or King lifted a finger in violence. Whatever begins in violence continues on in violence. You cannot bring peace through violence. We got preachers and Christians who think Jesus is coming again any minute. That's how they read what's going on in the world. And they're overjoyed that Jesus is going to come out of the sky with thousands of millions of angels and set everything right. Well, folks, let me give you a hot flash. That was the theory with the Jews 2,000 years ago, and it was wrong. That Jesus would come out of the sky and get rid of the Romans and so forth. Jesus came as a human baby, born of Mary and laid in a manger. And nobody recognized him. And I say nobody recognized him because, you know, at the cross, of all the people that Jesus supposedly healed and saved and so forth, only a handful of women were at the cross. What does that tell you? All those people that took healings, accepted it, raising from the dead, and who was at the cross? A handful of women, not even the disciples. If anyone actually believed and was thankful for Jesus, they'd be still standing at the cross right this minute. The book of Revelation is a lie. Again, I have a book, The Third Millennium, Second Reformation of Christianity. All this is in there. But my focus today is on these corrupt preachers. Number one of the two things I'm going to talk about is that these preachers are millionaires. And they are accumulating that millions of dollars, those millions of dollars, through offerings, if you will, contributions from people they're speaking to. These false preachers are an abomination to God and Jesus, both. And they're going to have a rude awakening at death and judgment. That they would take money from the people that God inspires to send them money and make use of it for their personal egos. Judas, when Mary was pouring perfume on Jesus' feet, Judas said, look, we need to take the perfume and sell it and give it to the poor. Can you imagine Peter or Paul taking a cut of the money that came in to them in their ministries and buy the best horse, the best chariot, the best wagon, the best living quarters? Can you imagine that? Is that the way it works? Is that what Paul and Peter did? No, but these false preachers are doing it. Osteen with his jet, most of them have jets. $10 million house. Give me a break. If you're listening to these preachers, you're lost. And if you're sending them money, you're double lost. The book of Hebrews and Jeremiah, it says that God has put his laws in your hearts and minds. And if you want to know what those laws are, you go internally. You meditate, you pray, you study. If you follow a preacher, you're following his rhetoric. And that's not going to be right for you. It's a matter of the blind leading the blind being those who are following, and the blind also being the leaders, believing that they can talk about Jesus who had nothing. And as the money comes in, put it in their bank account for their retirement. It's absolutely revolting. And there will be a price to pay. Turn these people off. Quit listening to them. God is in your heart and mind. And that's where you need to go. I have another website, the Purple Order of Spiritual Christians. And you need to read that. And gather together in small groups. And work out the things you don't understand. Not follow false preachers. How do you know you're dealing with a false preacher? He promotes the false book of Revelation, and he takes money from parishioners and builds big houses, buys jets, and drives in big cars. That's a false preacher. And now I'm going to give you a third, more telling example. During this coronavirus, and even now, these preachers are talking about, well, my parishioners can make up their own mind about masks and vaccinations. You baby boomers, of which I am one, but I am not one of you, except by date of birth. Your parents came out of World War II determined after World War II and enduring the Depression that their kids were not going to have to suffer. And baby boomers are spoiled. They're spoiled to the point where they're burning down the Garden of Eden and not looking back, refusing vaccinations. That's going to kill a lot of people. You know, when I went into the Army, 1970, I was headed for Vietnam, more than likely. I didn't go there. But I was trained for a year to go there. But in boot camp, every Friday was shot day. We were going overseas, and we were going into a plague-ridden area compared to America, and we got shots. Nobody refused shots. We were lined up 200 deep, and they had the vaccination guns, and they were shooting it into your arm, and you take a step and you get a shot in the other arm, and that went on for 8 weeks. When the polio vaccine came out, I took it. I took the shot, then I took the sugar cubes. Nobody refused the polio vaccine. It was insane that anybody would say that. Nobody refused the vaccines in the Army. Most of these preachers haven't been in the Army. They don't know anything about that. The shingles vaccine, I took it. The pneumonia vaccine, I took it. I take the flu shot every year. So what with this COVID shot? I am vaccinated. And that's another thing. These false preachers and these politicians won't take a stand either way and state clearly, I got the vaccine or I didn't get the vaccine. But let's get back to reality here. These are plagues on the earth, and they're man-made. They're man-made in the sense that the Lord is sick of what's going on. If a preacher tells you don't get vaccinated or you don't have to get vaccinated, then I'll tell you what, you need to expect to see him at your bedside at the hospital. If he's encouraging you not to get vaccinated and pick up that virus and spread it, then he needs to come to the hospital and heal you. He's not going to do that. That's a false preacher. An abomination to God and Jesus both. These guys need to fold up their tent and shut up and go away. Enough is enough. Hard times are coming. The heat domes are not going away. The flooding is not going to go away. It's going to be worse in the coming years. What are you going to do when America can't grow any food? Because it's either burning up or flooding out. Years ago, I made a painting, Fire and Water. I refused to do it. I'm an artist. I saw fire at the top half and water at the bottom, and I had it in a dream, and I refused to paint it. I saw it and had that dream 7 times, and I finally painted it, and I never really understood it. I thought it might have something to do with the logo of HarperCollins, and they were going to publish my books. As it turns out, they're all my books, 100 of them almost, are on Amazon. But now I know what that painting meant. Fire and water. Destruction of the Garden of Eden with fire and water. Not fire and ice, fire and water. It's time for you to wake up. I'm the advocate for Jesus. And I'm telling you what I hear. These false preachers are an abomination, including the Pope, including the priest. Think about it. This is Dr. John WorldPeace, JD. I'll be back on the YouTube shortly.